Greetings viewers, and welcome to what I'm hoping will be another educational video for you. If you've clicked on the link for this video, that can only mean one thing, and you're here to learn about dart traps, so let's get right to it. So, this red thing that you see right in front of you that's taking up a 1x1 block space is a dart trap. It's one of the many traps that you can use in 7 Days to Die, and there's a couple ways you can get your hands on them. The first one, you can buy it from a trader. Second one, you can loot it while you're out in the world. And the third one would be being able to craft it yourself. However, there's a couple restrictions on being able to craft it. And as we see right here in our crafting menu, one of the things you're going to either need is a dart trap schematic. So you're going to need to find this specific book while you're out in the world and read it, and then you'll have access to crafting it. Other than that, you can spec into advanced engineering. So if we go over to, if we go over to intellect, we're going to come down here to advanced engineering. Before you can actually craft the dart trap, you're going to have to get to advanced engineering level 3. So if we look right here, it says you can craft advanced base defense systems. It says electric fences and blade traps. However, dart traps are also covered in this. If you look at the lock symbol here, it says you need intellect level 6. If we go up to the intellect tree here and go to level 6, this is the first part of the intellect tree where it requires 2 points to purchase your skill point to go into there. So more than likely, unless you're just doing nothing but dumping points into your intellect tree, you're probably going to find the dart trap schematic before then, which I know for sure that I have. But again, everybody's game is going to be different. Those are the ways that you can get access to crafting it. So once we've got it crafted, we can place it down in the world. What do we do with it? Well, we hit E to interact with it. And the only options that you have right here are these 3 little slots that look like little metal darts and to lock ammo. Well, in order to be able to use this thing, besides having to hook it up to a power source and then potentially, however you're using it, some sort of sensor or activation device, to get it to start shooting darts at these zombies, we need to actually get ammo to put into it. And that's what I have right here, these iron darts. So the way that you get a hold of these darts, same thing. You can buy them from a trader. You can loot them in the world, or you can craft them. However, crafting is not done in the workbench, it's in the forge. So if we come over to our forge here, I've got it fully maxed out. I'm smelting right now some iron and clay in here. We've got a nice little chunk of it. And if we look at what we need to craft the individual darts, with no points in anything, I have absolutely 0 skill points right now. It takes 3 iron and 1 clay. Now, keep in mind, let's go back down here to advanced engineering. All forged recipes cost 10% less, and then as we go down, they cost 15% less, and then 20% less. Well, I can tell you right now that 3 iron and 1 clay, you're not going to go down to like 0.25 clay, so this is going to maintain as 1, and all this is going to do is end up going down to 1 and 1. So if you're just speccing into that to get some reduced cost on your crafts, not going to help you out much, but it's pretty cheap to begin with. You can usually get your hands on quite a bit of iron and clay. So once we have our darts that we've crafted in our forge, it can hold 3 stacks of 500. So we'll go ahead and dump all of these in here. It's maxed out. You cannot put any more in that until it's shot some of these, then you can add to the stack. In order for this thing to actually work and fire the darts at whatever it is you're intending them to fire at, you must hit lock ammo. I don't know why they did this, but this is the feature that's on there. So if you are in the middle of a horde night and this thing's running low on ammo, it's not completely empty, but you want to fill it up while there's a lull, you're going to have to activate this, come in here, unlock, add whatever darts you have to fill it back up, and then remember to relock it. Sometimes in the panic, I guess, the adrenaline's rushing, you're clicking buttons and doing things, and you're trying to get back to the fight. If you don't go back and hit this lock ammo, this thing will not work. The zombies will be hitting whatever sensors you have hooked up, and it will not shoot. So once we have this thing firing at the zombies, what exactly does it do? Let's go ahead and look at one that I've got set up here. I have a generator that's just wired straight into my dart trap. This is should look familiar here where we were running the relay and I was showing you how far it went. I had to extend it out a little bit, but let's go ahead and see this thing in action. I'm going to open it up. You see we've got our ammo locked, so let's unlock it real quick. We're going to turn on our generator. It is fueled up. You can hear it running. This thing is clicking, but it's not shooting any darts out. The reason for that is because this is not locked. The second I click this, it starts shooting darts. So how far do these darts shoot? I've got these spaces numbered here. And as we keep following, you can kind of see the dart start losing a little bit of height on it. If we come all the way down here to block number 27, you see that it is hitting this block. Keep in mind, the dart traps do not damage blocks. They don't damage any structure, basically, that you placed in the world. You can put 2 of these facing each other and have them shoot all 3 stacks of 500 darts at each other, and they will not do a single point of damage. This 27 blocks, as you can see, it's pretty low. It's not really going to hit a whole lot. If there's a zombie standing here, it's not going to hit it. And you're going to want them to be standing a little bit closer than 27 blocks. If you've got something like a dog or a crawler, yeah, it's probably going to start hitting it a little bit more effectively. But you can see as we get closer to it, we've got a little bit more height on it. Now, keep in mind, this is only one. Let me turn this thing off because it's really annoying. So, we've got one dart trap here. If I'm a zombie and I'm walking towards this thing, it's only basically shooting me in the legs. You can stack these things. And when we go to place them in the world, if you notice, it has a green arrow on it. It's going to show you what direction those darts are going to be coming out of. So you want to see those little holes if that's where you're wanting the darts to shoot out of. So I want to have that looking at me. So when you're placing these things down, ideally you would want more than one. So this bottom one here is going to hit crawlers, it's going to hit dogs, wolves, zombies, but it's going to hit them in the legs. If they get their legs chopped off and fall down and they're a crawler, it's going to keep hitting them. If you've got 2 of these things stacked up, you're going to be basically hitting them twice as effectively. So it would be, again, like if you had 2 pistols and you were shooting them, one in the upper body and one in the lower body, which is obviously going to do more damage. So ideally, you would want to stack them like this. And then if, again, you've got them both shooting, this top one may be wasted if there's a crawler coming up, but to get the most effectiveness out of these things, you're going to want them probably double stacked. I don't know that I've ever used them not like this. If maybe I've only looted one and I'm kind of desperate and throwing it down and I've got some darts somehow. Usually these kind of things are a little bit more later game. The first couple hordes typically, depending on your game settings, are not that difficult and should be more easily managed, basically with base design and whatever weapons and combat skills you've spec'd into. So what are some of the options that we can use to get these things running? So I've got my handy dandy wire tool here. And we've got our power source. So typically in order to get these things running, you got to go from the power source to whatever sensor it is that you're using. For this particular example, we've got our big pressure plate. We then go from our pressure plate, and by the way, I'm right clicking to attach these wires. If you haven't seen my guide to electronic devices in 7 days to die, please feel free to take a look at that. It kind of goes over just the kind of basic steps here. We're going to now attach our pressure plate, which has the power signal from the generator to our dart trap. So now we've got a connected circuit. It just requires power. Also requires darts and being locked, which it is. Now, if I come over here and I turn my generator on, there's no darts shooting out. Oh, it's not going to shoot out until I stand on this pressure plate. And as you can see, I've got it shooting this block. And if I switch to my nail gun, like I said before, it does not damage blocks. There's nothing happening here. If I were to blast it a couple times with my pistol and then switch back to my nail gun, we're going to see that there's damage here, and it is not going up as these darts are running into it. As soon as I step off of the pressure plate, it stops shooting. So there's a couple ways we can kind of use that to our advantage. I'm not a huge fan of pressure plates. We'll get to that in a minute, and I'll kind of explain why. Some of the other options that you may want to use in terms of the zombies themselves triggering these things. You've got your tripwires, which again I covered in the electronics video. So we're going to go from our generator to our tripwire. Tripwire to this side. So we're going to follow that current going all the way through. We're going to come from here, and then we're going to go to our dart trap. We have to turn our generator on again. We've already got our ammo loaded and it's locked. We're going to walk through our tripwire. And while we're in this thing, it's going to shoot, and then it's going to stop. So you could kind of use this along a hallway if you've got your zombies kind of shuttled through a certain area that you want them to travel. They're going to hit this. I would recommend coming in here and perhaps changing some of these depending on where you have it shooting. Obviously, you want it instantly. As soon as the zombies touch it, you want it shooting. And then maybe put like a 5-second delay on it so that when, even as I walk through it, I'm no longer touching it and they're kind of shuffling towards your base. It's still shooting. And then once that 5-second delay is over, it stops. But if there's more zombies, especially if it's Horde night, they're going to keep coming. So as long as there's another zombie behind it, it's going to continue shooting. So these things are pretty simple. Now, keep in mind, if let's say you place this thing down, you edit your base, you're changing the design or you're moving your Horde base to somewhere else and you don't want to lose the resources you did to craft this thing. If I hold E right now, it doesn't do anything. It just always comes up to this menu. However, if it's within range of a land claim block, so if I just plop this down here and I turn that on, you can see the green borders here. This is as big of as an area as it will cover. This trap is inside of that. Now, if I approach this thing and I hold E, I'm going to get this option where I can go to this screen that we've already seen, or I can go to take. And then it's going to give you kind of a little countdown. Make sure you're, I guess, not in the middle of getting your butt kicked in a Horde and you're trying to grab this thing and bail out. And then once it's done, that thing's back in my inventory. I had some already here, so it just stacked on top of that. So that's just kind of a general idea of how these things work. I'm going to show you some kind of generic ideas for what I feel like are best use case scenarios for the dart trap and how to employ them in your base. So this is not a base building guide by any means. However, I will kind of point out the fact that when you're building your Horde base, the main idea is you want to shuttle these guys down the paths that you want. You want to direct the flow of traffic. And the way I kind of would explain that to somebody is think about Disney World or wherever your favorite theme park is, where you've got rides and just a whole bunch of people that want to get on that thing. And you get to the entrance to the ride and it says, hey, there's a 90-minute wait for this thing. And as you're walking through, you're kind of going zigzag back and forth with all the switchbacks with the ropes, and they got you going through tunnels and inside and back outside and around. They're directing the flow of traffic. Now, imagine if all that stuff wasn't there and it was just the gate that said, hey, this is the ride, the wait's 90 minutes, good luck. And then the next thing that you got to was the entrance to the ride itself. Just imagine the chaos that would ensue between the entrance and the start of the ride. So that's kind of what a Horde night looks like. So think about that. And we're trying to get these guys and girls to go where we want them to. Number one rule when building a Horde base, at least my number one rule, is get off the ground. You don't want to be on the ground, so you want to be in some sort of elevated position. So that's kind of what I've demonstrated here. So for this first example, I've just got some rudimentary steps going up with blocks, pretending I'm a zombie approaching this thing. The only way that I can get to you is by going up this thing. The zombies can jump 1 block high, so they're going to jump. They're going to hit this block. They're going to have to keep jumping until they get to the top. Now they're on the same elevation as you, and they're going to approach this hatch area that I've set up here, which I'll explain in just a second. As you can see, I've got some blocks here. These are the blocks that have holes in the middle of them. And if you guys want to know exactly what shape this is, if I go to the square option here, so I guess let me explain what I did here. I went to the shape itself where I can place this block, but I don't want to use a solid cube. I'm going to hold R. This radial menu is going to come up. I'm going to put my mouse over shape. I'm not going to click, and then I'm just going to release R. This menu is going to come up. This will be the very first thing you see, and the shape that I'm using is this cube 1 millimeter hole. The darts will shoot through this hole. They will also shoot through other blocks, but I like this one because normally I would put a solid block here to, again, slow the zombies down and control the flow of traffic to where I want them to go. But they now hit this. They have to, again, jump just like they did those blocks to get over it. I have had zombies attempt to climb through these things. They kind of bug out and kind of hover in the air a little bit, which, to be honest, in this particular demonstration that I'm going to give you here is not necessarily a bad thing because all they're doing is hanging out in the dart's firing range, even longer, taking more damage before they get to me. So zombies jump over these blocks. They approach this entrance here where I'm going to be standing on that side. In this particular instance, I have a railing block down on the bottom. the darts, again, will shoot through that block as well. So like I showed you earlier, I have them stacked 2 blocks high. So these things will just be blasting them. In order for me to get in this base, I would use this hatch. Now, close my hatch, and now I'm on the inside while the zombies are approaching. Well, I don't want this thing hurting me. These darts will hurt you if you walk in front of them. And just to show you, not that it really means anything, but my only death on this world here right now is because I was screwing around putting this whole thing together for you guys and stood in front of the dart trap too long and died. So, your dart traps will kill you. You don't want to stand in front of them, but it will also kill the zombies. So, that doesn't do me any good standing here being at this fighting position. However, the way that I've rigged this one up, and this is just something I recommend if you maybe are conserving darts, you don't have a lot of resources, you want to use traps, but you don't really, you know, want to go all out, you don't want to lose the XP, because speaking of which, these traps, if you were to just let this run all night and you stood off to the side and didn't even look at the zombies and they were just fighting to get to you and these traps killed every one of them, you would get absolutely 0 XP. And that is until on advanced engineering here. So we talked about having to get to level 3 to create the traps. This is the first time where it says in the middle there, gain 20% XP from electrical trap kills. So that is included in that with the dart traps. So just think about a regular zombie is going to give you, if you haven't messed with the game settings at all, 400 XP. So you're only going to get 20% of 400 XP for this thing doing all the work. However, if in this particular example I've set up, which I think it could be kind of beneficial and helpful to you without stealing the entire show of Horde Night. You've got your fighting position. You're duking it out with the zombies. And your recog ran out. Your grandpa's elixir ran out, so you're not getting as much XP. You need a Mega Crush, or you're brawling and you need a beer. You just have no stamina. You got to repair your weapon. You need to get out of the line of fire here. The zombies are going to continue to start bashing on your stuff, but you don't want to be ineffective and not hurting them. So what I've done in this particular instance is, let me get on my wire tool here. I've got my generator bank, and I've hooked it up to a pressure switch. I've hooked the pressure switch up to my dart traps. Now, if I am off of this fighting position and I step off, let's say this is powered, and I step off to the side, my dart trap's going to activate and start shooting. I can now stand here. I can use a health kit. I can repair my weapon. I can drink a recog. I can answer a text message, whatever it is that you're doing in the middle of your horde, and you want to get these guys dead and not have them smash their way through. You're now out of the line of fire, setting this thing off. Now, I would definitely recommend that it's at least 1 block away from where your fighting position is. So if this block is where I'm standing, this gap here before I place my plate. Ideally, I would put it over here in this corner. And the reason for that, you can hear the sound when this thing triggers. So if I slide over, keep sliding over. Okay, I'm basically in the middle of this second block before that thing unactivates. I guess my right foot's sticking out really far and I'm standing on it. You can hear that clicking on, and now it's off. So basically, if I had that pressure plate here and I slid over, I'd be standing here. Well, guess what? Remember what I told you? This thing will hurt you. I'm now getting shot by my own dart trap. So minimum 1 gap. That way, as you step off of it, it stops shooting. You can get back to fighting. For this one, you definitely want the power delay on instant, and you would want it only the power duration triggered, which means as you're standing on it. If you put any sort of delay on this, that's going to defeat the purpose of having this block here to get off of it. So let's go ahead and turn this on. These are both fully loaded and fully locked. If I stand on this pressure plate, it starts shooting. The second I get off of it, it stops. So I can duke it out with the zombies. Oh, I gotta take a recog. Let me come over here. I gotta repair my knuckles, whatever. Let me drop off of this thing and get back to fighting. Again, if you do it really quick, it's possible you could get shot by your own darts. So again, I would recommend placing it a little bit further off to the side, but that's just an option. Let's go ahead and turn this one off. And this is if you have a, again, straight run coming at your base. You can access your dart traps in the middle of the fight from doing it like this. You can add more darts to them if you have them. I don't know that you would need to repair them. It's possible if you're standing here fighting and a cop comes up and spits at you and you get out of the way, it'll hit your dart traps. But while you're in here in the safety of your base, you have access to repair them so you can reach them. So another good idea, keep them within reach. So let's drop off over here and go to this other example for a way to use dart traps that I have set up. So we've got the same thing. We've got some stairs going up to a run. We've got our little blocks here that the darts will shoot through the holes. You can see this kind of little slit right here. And you can see the red on the inside there. Those are the dart traps. If I were to get rid of those blocks right there, you can see I've got my dart traps and then I've got a single space here. Well, the dart traps will not shoot through those single blocks. You can use one of those. You can use a railing. There's a couple other blocks that you and your traps can shoot through. I kind of am a fan of the arrow slits. So again, hold R, highlight over shapes, let go. I just come up here and type arrow. It's this first one right here, arrow slit. Select it, back out of that menu. And if we look at it, we can see the shape. It's this V shape. And what we want is we want it to look like that, where the big side of the V is towards the trap, and then you've got just the little slit here. Put those two there. Now, from the zombies that are coming up this direction on our base, because again, we're directing that flow of traffic to get to our fighting position, so they've got to run headlong into these darts before they make a turn and then come to our fighting position. In this one, I've got the hatch on the ground, this is just kind of like the standard position. This is typically what I use, what most people I've seen use, and then you just kind of duke it out from here. Well, the dart traps are there, but how do we get it to start firing? I would not recommend putting a pressure plate out here. The reason for that, zombies like to destroy your stuff. Put it out here. They get angry because they have to jump this block. Sometimes they'll just start punching. They may break your pressure switch. And if you remember, we have to run from the power source to the switch to our trap. So if they break this, that breaks that whole connection, and your dart trap is now sitting inside your base completely useless. It's just a giant paperweight. So my suggestion and what I typically like to use are motion sensors. And if I equip my wire tool, it will show us the visual cone of the motion sensor. You can put this as high or as low as you want, or in any position depending on the configuration of your base. But again, this is a straight run coming at the base before it turns and then comes at us again. So I've got that pointing out this way. And if you look, it'll pick up these zombies as soon as they get to the top of the step. So when they come up here and they make their face visible, well, my face is looking at that bottom dart trap. So they're going to start getting shot in the face before they even clear this first block. They're going to jump up, keep getting shot now through the feet and the face. They got to stop and jump up here, jump up here. When they get here, they're in the safe zone. So for the motion sensor and a setup similar to this, I would recommend making sure you go up here. There are different settings. You don't want it targeting you. You want it targeting zombies. If you're playing on some sort of PvP server for whatever reason, you can target strangers there. But most people are just going to use the target zombies. Power delay instant. The second it sees an ugly zombie head pop up, you want it to start shooting. That's what that means. Duration. So once it starts shooting, how long do you want it to keep going? My typical go-to, again, is 5 seconds. And the reason for that, again, is because if it's Horde night, there's just going to be a constant stream of zombies coming. So they may be staggered a little bit. Perhaps the first zombie makes it up the steps and gets up here, and the next one is 2 or 3 steps below them because they got hung up jumping and they got angry and started punching stuff. Well, this first zombie is going to come up here, and as long as it's in that cone, it's going to keep shooting. Once that zombie clears this, it's going to continue to shoot for 5 seconds. Well, my hope, and usually what happens, is by the time they get here, get out of that cone, there's going to be another one behind them. So they may not even be in the visual range yet. They're just coming up. That it's down to 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1, oh, and it shoots them right in the face. Now they're in the visual cone, and it starts the 5-second timer all over again. So I have this one hooked up separately. I also, again, if I'm in my fighting position here, I have access to repair these traps. With that arrow slit in front of each of these, you're probably not going to get any damage to this thing. It's very unlikely that that's going to get hurt. If I come out here with my Desert Vulture and I use my iron sights and I point directly at the trap and I shoot directly through the slit and I switch to my tool, I did hit it. But what zombie is going to start launching an assault on your traps directly through that slit? Maybe cop puke, but you shouldn't be standing there. They can't see you through those blocks, so they're not really going to shoot at you. So again, it's very, very unlikely, unless again it's another player in a PvP server and they're lining up their shots to hit it. But if they're up here, then hopefully they're getting shot with your darts. So that's one way that I kind of like to employ these things. With most of the traps in this game, using kind of a layered approach is better. One thing that I would recommend, and I'll cover those in their separate video, is perhaps some electric wires. And I would run those across here, because what happens is that when they hit the wires, they get shocked and they're frozen in place. So again, like we talked about, the longer they're frozen in place here, the longer those darts are shooting. It shoots 2 darts per second, and that's 2 darts every second that they're standing here getting shocked, and then they move into the next wire and get shocked, and then they move up here and have to jump this block and then come down and get shocked again. So the more layering you can do with your traps, the more it'll help you in killing these zombies. Now, another thing that people commonly use, and I've seen quite frequently, is placing a dart trap directly over the position where you're going to be fighting them from. So they're standing here trying to punch you, and they're getting shot in the top of the head with the dart trap. The benefit to this is you can use a single trap and damage anything that's here. I've never seen a crawler on Horde Night, but in the event that you get one, or maybe you blow the legs off of one and they crawl up here, or you've got a dog or a leaper, spider zombie that's kind of down on the ground, or you just get one of those pesky zombies that likes to lay on their belly and just punch your stuff so you can't hit them from up here, this thing is going to hit them. So that's definitely one of the pros, while only using one dart trap. The only problem with that is depending on your base setup, I would recommend in a situation like this using a very thin walkway so the zombies can't pile up too much. But if you've played this game enough and you know when the zombies kind of pile up on a fighting position, they'll start stacking up on each other's shoulders. And all you'll see through this little window is their feet. Well, while they're up here punching, they can damage your trap. So if you get enough of them stacked up here and they get angry enough and they just start punching everything that they can reach, your trap could get damaged to the point where it is no longer operable. So depending on how you have this set up, most people would have this as a solid wall and slap that thing on the outside. I would somehow knock this block out and make it so that you can access it from the inside. So if that were to happen, for one, you can repair it, or two, you can get in here to add more darts depending on the difficulty of your horde and how many zombies you're having to fight, if this thing's burning through darts or not. Usually through most hordes, I don't have that many problems with them. Something to keep in mind with the hordes as well, just as a side note, dart traps will not set off demolishers buttons. So no matter what configuration you have your darts in, whether you've got 2 of them stacked up, one, they're shooting from the top, it will not set off their button. What I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of give a little bit of a demonstration here since I've got you. I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing on. That's already all set up. We're going to come over here. We're going to spawn a couple zombies. And since I mentioned them, why not spawn a demo? Hey, dickhead. Let's get out of the way before those dart traps start shooting. So, oh, motion sensors picked him up already, and now he's starting to get hit. Oh, and he fell. So that thing's going to shoot for 5 seconds, and then it's going to turn off. Now it saw him down on the ground. And it's going to do that, so it'll see him running around while others are trying to jump up there. As you can see, it's hitting him in the chest, that top one is, and it's not setting off his button. Let's see, what's his health at? Oh, hey, buddy. Better back up. All right, so we've got this other one. So now that one is ineffective for anybody that's at our door. So if we come over here and we turn this one on, and we turn on our switch, we're now shooting him in the head. Let's get that repaired, because he's going to beat the hell out of it. Why can't we see his health? Oh, look at that. We didn't even touch him and he died. So let's turn that one off. So in this, again, particular instance, I have this one hooked up to a switch. It's up to you how you decide that you want to power them. Again, I would not recommend pressure plates. If you put a pressure plate here, that may be okay. You start getting pushed away from this door because you've got too many zombies piling up. You got a cop that explodes and that pressure plate gets damaged. You're not going to have a way to activate that trap unless you've got the supplies set up in your wire tool and you can kind of jury rig something. So I would recommend maybe a switch. Again, the motion sensor thing I like using for that kind of run here that I've got them diverted off the path before they kind of come back to it and then get to me. I'm just a fan of those. I can put them up and out of the way, and I've never had a motion sensor damaged during a horde. I have had these get damaged being here, but if you, again, give yourself access to it and you can repair it in the middle of the horde, then you'll be all set. So hopefully I did not miss anything with this explanation of dart traps and some of my recommended ways to employ them in your base. Again, like I said, they are best suited being layered with other traps, but this video is specifically talking about dart traps. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful and you now know a little bit more about dart traps and some helpful ways to employ them in your base and make the best use of them while making sure that they don't get destroyed. If you found this video helpful, please feel free to like, subscribe, comment down below what you like, didn't like about it, anything I could do to make it better. I do plan to make more videos on each of the individual traps, so stay tuned for those. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.